Welcome back. Tonight we are discussing sanctuary cities. The Center for Immigration Studies defines them as cities and counties that have policies obstructing immigration enforcement. According to the organization, more than 300 jurisdictions meet this definition across the country, including 7 counties here in Florida. Congressman Vern Buchanan is supporting the Stop Dangerous Sanctuary Cities Act, a bill cutting federal funding to these communities. President-elect Donald Trump often talked about the issue on the campaign trail. And joining us for more tonight is Andrea Mogensen, a civil rights attorney for Florida's American Civil Liberties Union, Jack Brill, vice chair of the Sarasota County Republican Party, and Reimer Torrado, the chief disruption officer for the online publication Sarasota Underground. Did I get your first name right?
Nailed it.
Oh, very good. This was front and center in the presidential campaign. I believe President-elect Trump kept on talking about what happened in San Francisco, where there was a unfortunate situation where a young woman was killed by an illegal immigrant, and it obviously going into the new administration, the bill in Congress would really penalize cities that take this tack. Jack, make the case.
Well, if you look at the Kate Steele, San Francisco, unfortunate, her death. Here was a person who had been deported 2 or 3 times. He came back across the border, was caught, put in jail for an earlier crime. Then they had him for another crime, got transferred to California, and ICE was sitting there with the paperwork, ready to deport him as soon as he got out of that jail term. And San Francisco, the local authorities, never told him that he got out. They let him go. And that's how the next incident happened. This young lady lost her life.
And Andrea, this is the kind of situation that has so many people around the country furious.
Sure. And I do see that the tendency is to focus on this person's immigration status rather than the fact that this person had committed a murder. Because, the acts of crime are certainly not the exclusive province of people who are from other origins. Certainly there are plenty of Americans committing these crimes. A very small fraction of them are affected. But what the problem here is that the federal government is trying to put the onus on local governments, and the price tag for detaining individuals on local governments, local sheriffs, really is a federal responsibility.
And that's an old story, though. I mean, I remember in the days after 9/11, working in another state where there were people actually of Middle Eastern descent who had various IDs on them. It was very suspicious, and the local police department couldn't even get federal authorities to come out and pick them up. So if we do not have these, if we're putting the onus on local law enforcement, shouldn't there be massive increases in grants or funding to local police departments to deal with it?
I think the scenario's switched. The federal authorities are ready and willing now. You read stories in Chicago, obviously California, the Northeast, and it's the other way around. The federal authorities want to pick them up, and nobody's telling them.
Well, what their actual policy is that they're asking local authorities to detain individuals for 48 hours without probable cause while they make a determination whether they want to come and get them. So that's not actually accurate. What they're doing is they're costing us money locally and not reimbursing the sheriffs who are housing these people, and they may or may not come and get them.
Rami, let me get you in here. How many people are we talking about, at least on the local level around here?
As far as illegal immigrants?
Right. In our community, if you could give it some kind of context to the people who are watching it.
I haven't the slightest idea. I don't know the numbers on the top of my head of what's here in this county. I'm not I'm not versed in those statistics.
What are people telling you when they hear about the bill in Congress and what President-elect wants to do?
I think more than anything, people are just starting to see that this is a larger rift between an overreaching federal government and cities, states, and counties trying to just figure out, can we run and manage our own cities? Are we capable of managing this and making these decisions? And we're going to get into some really interesting territory when we start setting precedents of which laws can be enforced and who picks which laws. Because if you go in immigration here and you don't start enforcing what is federal law, then what happens when somebody else picks another issue and has the precedent for taking their own?
There is much more to discuss, but first we have to take a quick break and have a check of our weather when we return. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing sanctuary cities and whether or not they should receive federal funding. Our guests tonight are civil rights attorney Andrea Mogensen, vice chair of the Sarasota GOP, Jack Brill, and the creator of the online publication Sarasota Underground, Reimar Tirado. Welcome again. Andrea, the ACLU is very involved in this issue. What are you doing right now?
Well, one of the things we're doing locally is that we're going to be gathering and letting people know what their rights actually are. We'll be meeting locally here in Sarasota, and if you'd like to attend, we have a Facebook page where people can join and watch for items of interest, including our gatherings, our educational meetings. But the ACLU's primary concern is always the Constitution, and when we talk about this issue, we need to break down, the different governmental actions and put it up and see if they pass constitutional muster.
Well, some you know about, some you don't. You don't know what the incoming administration is going to do. You do know about the bill that Congressman Buchanan is supporting in Congress. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that any governmental action, well, first of all, from a policy point of view, pitting the federal government against local governments and agencies and taking away their autonomy may create some friction that they're not looking for, and that's not a constitutional question, it's just an observation. But other than that, they just have to be careful that they do not run afoul of the Constitution. If there are going to be funds attached as a penalty for any non-compliance, as was stated in your preamble, those funds have to be rationally related to whatever the alleged infraction is. But they're also going to have to be able to define whatever is going to be punished as something that passes constitutional muster.
Jack, the immigration issue aside, cities that receive federal funds are funding police officers and their salaries who protect the public against a whole host of crimes. So is that the right way to go about it?
That's a tough question, and that's a tough issue. And the balance of trying to take care of this issue or manage this issue versus affecting other public services and our own safety, that's a very much of a gray area, and it's going to be one that's obviously going to be discussed in the next several months. But I think also some of the cities need to take responsibility. When the mayor of Chicago says, we will be a sanctuary city forever, well, that's not the right way to take care of your citizens either. So there's a balance.
And you can't pay for that, right? And so that's why they're leaning on the federal money. And so the biggest problem is not necessarily that it's happening; it's that how it's being addressed and how it's being handled, and we're seeing a huge disconnect, if you will, in the entire political process. And the Constitution protects the rights of American citizens, and so we can't pick and choose, where we apply. This is the Constitution; we must stick to it, and then over here, let's run away from it and let's bash it and beat it up. And so the federal government has been sticking its nose into city and state politics for, as long as it's been around.
And here's one of the problems, too, is that the federal government is trying to force local sheriffs specifically, because they are the people who are expected to detain these folks, to detain them at their own cost, and if they don't do so, they intend to pull other funds. So not only they're not paying for their responsibility.
You also have federal situations in Arizona where you have them cutting funding to sheriffs who are actually trying to enforce immigration laws on the border, and so you just have a political game that's being played.
I did want to follow up on something that Reimar talked about, the old battle between state rights and federal rights. A lot of the folks in your party chafe when the federal government.
Absolutely.
So why is this different?
Well, this is a common security issue for everybody. And by the way, to note, Sheriff Knight, for the longest time, if they found somebody that was not properly documented here in Sarasota, they sent them down to the ICE, facilities in Miami, and we took care of our issue and let them deal with it. But we've got to protect the rights of our legal citizens. And to have folks here that are undocumented, illegally here, that creates a two-level, society, which shouldn't be, and it's not fair to the rights of the citizens.
But you can't have it both ways and then use that as cheap labor in a lot of instances too, right? So you can't be okay with bashing it on one side and then supporting it on the other side with industry. And I don't know that specifically happened here, right? We're not diving into a specific situation that we know about in the local community, but it's a real issue
of undocumented workers.
You use the labor; it's cheap labor, and it's supported in a ton of industries, actually, and here locally in a lot of the agriculture.
And I'll tell you what, I would rather take the people that are on the SNAP program that are,
But they won't
receiving
do it.
federal
They
benefits.
don't want it.
That's
They don't
right.
wanna
If they
get off-
want to continue getting their benefits, then we should be able to put them to work.
Listen,
I would do
is-
that in a
That's-
second.
you won't get an argument from me on that.
There is one other issue that I want to get to, and that is what's happening at New College and other schools around the country in terms of the students asking the administration to make the college itself a sanctuary campus. And we do know that there are dreamers and others who go to these schools. You have your ear to the community. What are younger folks saying about that?
They're saying a lot, but they're not doing a lot, right? So it's really easy to be loud and to take a platform of we're going to stand for this, but when it comes time to get involved and when it gets the time to actually get your feet on the ground and go get your hands dirty and actually knock on some doors or make some phone calls or get involved in some of the advocacy groups locally, nothing happens. And so they're desperate. Those groups are desperate, looking for people on the streets that actually want to get involved and actually make a difference.
Jack, there was a day, our schools and campuses were very active in terms of young people pushing on issues like the Vietnam War, and you see a growing number of schools and young people doing this. So you may have a situation where the communities are having money taken away by the federal government, but the college campus is a different deal.
Depends on if they're a public or private, depending on how their funding sources are. I think colleges have always been a generation of folks to speak out, try different views, and that's great. That's part of freedom of speech. But at the same time, you've got to follow, the laws, whether local or federal. And I'm sure, you mentioned the new college. I'm sure under Dr. O'Shea's got a great administration. They've got a good student government. I'm sure they'll work something out that will, be beneficial for everybody and will help the cause.
Andrew, have any schools been doing this in terms of making it official policy? Do you know?
Well, when you say it official policy, some schools are doing some things, some schools are declining to do things. But what is it that they're doing? Because, for example, what the students would like to do or what they desire to do is all First Amendment protected. They can desire all sorts of things. The way the schools respond to it, if they're creating, safe spaces where other students can't express dissent, that might have First Amendment implications that are negative for the school. If they're taking a position where they're going to refuse to enforce a particular law, that might be different. Or if they're going to allow the existing privacy responsibilities that they have, because they do have some discretion in them, to not release private student information and they're within their rights to do it, that's fine too. It's not a simple, is this okay or is this not okay? It's what specifically are they being asked to do, what decisions are they making, and what are they going to do? And each piece of that has to stand up to constitutional muster. There are so many issues involving the immigration issue. One of them also is DACA, the Dreamers. I noticed a interchange the other night on CNN between a Dreamer who is going to school and former Senator Rick Santorum. And she is saying, basically, look, I've been in America most of my life. I didn't come here voluntarily. I was brought here. And should I be shipped out of the country? And Senator Santorum was saying, in fact, yes.
He did.
It's going to be a messy couple of years if this is the road that we go down.
It's going to be. And the Dreamers are a totally much tougher scenario. If you're brought over and you're 2, 3 years old, you've grown up, you've had the advantage of a great education system, health care, and you are contributing back to society. That is a much tougher situation.
All right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll get final thoughts from our guests, plus what some of our viewers are saying about a sad reversal of fortune for the Florida manatee. Welcome back. Donald Trump will take the oath of office in 5 weeks. Will he make good on his promise to cut off federal funding to cities, counties, and states that protect illegal immigrants? Our guests join us for final thoughts. Ramo, what do you expect from the new administration?
I expect him to keep posturing like he is and to keep taking a really strong stance on immigration, where I think he has an opportunity to push for real immigration reform here and actually find some real solutions. And instead, I think we're pushing ourselves towards a stronger divide here, where we're taking really hardline positions. This country was founded on hard work and opportunities, and we should find a way to give people those same opportunities. And I think all of that involves some comprehensive reform.
Jack, I believe Republicans and Democrats both believe that the answer is comprehensive immigration reform. It did not get done in the 8 years of Obama. Will it get done in the 4 or 8 years of Trump?
I'm not sure. It'll be interesting. There's a fresh start. You know, we have the House and the Senate and the President. So hopefully something will get done. But at the same time, when you look at Congressman Buchanan's bill, you know, you have to go back. We are a nation of immigrants. My grandfather came through Ellis Island. You know, he learned to speak English because I remember he spoke German in the house and he spoke English because we were in America and that was our language. So.
Well, let me just ask you, because the knock on Obama was when he came into office, he had the Senate, the House, and the White House, and he didn't do it. You have the Senate, the House, and the White House now. What's stopping the Trump administration?
Stay tuned after 5 weeks.
Andrea?
Well, I think we've got to be very careful here because there's been a lot of discussion about immigration. And as was just noted, this is a nation that was founded on immigration. We've got to be very careful because it's become such a hot issue and people feel really strongly about it. Let's not forfeit our individual rights in the name of trying to solve this problem. If we're going to detain people, we still need probable cause that they committed a crime. We still need to preserve our constitutional rights, because if we start finding reasons not to uphold the Constitution, pretty soon we will not have one, and then we will not be any different than the other nations that we desire to separate
It
ourselves
also can't
from.
go without saying that you can't solve, you can't just solve the problems by taking the refugees of all the other countries and just being the place where everybody runs for sanctuary, because those people are running from oppressive governments and lawless nations. And if we create a lawless nation, where are we going to run?
We could go on for hours on this, but we have to leave it there. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of you are saying about a story that we reported last night. The Florida manatee has made a huge comeback from the endangered species list. In the past 25 years, the population has increased from 500% to more than 6,000. But with more of them in the water, more of them are being killed by boaters, a new record, nearly 100 this year alone. And here is what some of you are saying. Patrick McCarthy writes, more manatees mean more interactions with boats, but let's not demonize the idiot boaters. Paul Forrester writes, the hundreds of idiots that race their boats in the shallow Sarasota Bay are a danger to many manatees and dolphins that live in the bay. That photo is courtesy of the Sarasota Dolphin Research Program. And Desiree Frayne writes, yeah, thanks to being taken off the endangered list, that was a real smart. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, want to watch past Roundtable discussions? They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thank you to our guests for being here tonight. Andrea Mogensen is a civil rights attorney. Jack Brill is vice chair of the Sarasota Republican Party. And Raimar Tirado is the chief disruption officer for the online publication Sarasota Underground.